And Vanessa Puna joins us live now to examine this more in depth. Obviously, this is one of the issues, Vanessa.
So talk to us a bit about the contention you have around the numbers of spaces or where homeless people can be accommodated, and also then the impact of this bylaw on that.
Yeah, I mean, even on the city's numbers, it's illogical. You can't make something a crime. You can't make sleeping on the streets a crime if there's a more demand for shelter than there is supply.
The city is being described as being schizophrenic, according to UNATHI. The city has also been described as criminalizing the homeless with bylaws.
Another volatile episode in the escalating crisis of homelessness in Cape Town that has pitted politicians against NGOs, service providers against human rights activists, and caught in the middle are street dwellers who feel criminalised by the recent approval of an amended streets bylaw that fines street-based communities if they refuse the city's offers of shelter or safe spaces.
I take that as an insult to every single official in the Social Development Department in the city of Cape Town who on a daily basis engages homeless people in the hotspots, offering them shelter, safe space, reintegration.
The city of Cape Town is not constitutionally mandated to deal with the homeless. This is the responsibility of the provincial and national departments of social development.
We as a city and as a local government and as a caring city know that we can't wait for other spheres of government to address a need that we're feeling very regularly on the ground.
There are not sufficient bed spaces in the city of Cape Town, and I don't blame the city for that. The provincial government is responsible for that. But the city got involved by opening places like the safe spaces, etc. On the 31st of December last year,
Carlos Mesquita is an activist at the forefront of securing human rights for street-based communities.
I was homeless for myself for 6 years, and so I can tell you that nobody wants to be on the streets.
They feel discarded by society, used as political currency and as disposable commodities by allegedly unethical companies who exploit their vulnerability.
It all has to do with tenders. They don't care whether it's about homeless people, etc. It's about that tender and who's getting that tender, and city managers are involved and the directors are involved, and that's unfortunately the department then suffers.
There are many reasons why people choose the streets instead of a shelter. Women in particular prefer to take their chances on the streets rather than enter some shelters or safe spaces.
That is unfortunately the narrative that gets played, is that there are enough bed spaces, because they know there will always be enough bed spaces, because the ones they're offering are the ones that people don't want to access for various reasons.
And some of these reasons have a sickening resonance within the context of the relentless scourge of gender-based violence. To many, a safe space has become a contradiction in terms.
Luckily, by the grace of God, we've had the light shine. Strandfontein and COVID has helped shine the light on what's happening there.
It is the new cash cow. There is absolutely no governance. And I think this is what they are trying to evade.
If you look at the climate that we are currently in, and the gender-based violence that we are constantly faced with as females, as children, as vulnerable groups, I think that as a woman and as a professional, I cannot look away.
To fully understand the context of the city's role in setting up safe spaces, we need to revisit Strandfontein in 2020. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, the city rounded up street-based communities and transported them to this tented camp far from the city centre. It was a disaster. The camp was closed after alleged health, safety and human rights violations.
We are chock-a-block next to each other, and forget about safe distance and that type of thing. We've got 20 toilets for 608 people. Of those 20 toilets, only 2 had running water, and the water wasn't water, it was sewer water. You know what this is, what freaks me out about this whole thing? We were only there for 6 weeks. It felt like, no, never mind, 6 years, that's not even long enough. That's how bad it was.
The City of Cape Town subsequently allocated 3 urban sites as temporary safe spaces for the homeless. The first was Kulenburg 1, which had been managed by an outsourcing company called MacDoc since 2018, and for which the company was paid over 2 million rand to do so. After the closure of Strandfontein, 2 more city safe spaces were opened at Paint City in Bellville in April 2020 and Kulenburg 2 in July 2020. MacDoc, the same company that had been running Kulenburg 1 since 2018, was given control of Paint City.
If you look at street-based people, this is predominantly, they come from trauma, they come from mental health disorders, they have substance use disorder issues. And so your clinical tools in terms of assessment and intake need to be very specific in terms of how to treat them appropriately.
The city's former project manager, Nomfundo Mdingi, assembled a multidisciplinary consortium of NGOs and experts specializing in treating the complexities involved with homelessness.
The City of Cape Town from the very beginning said, we want to do more with our money. We want a sustainable option for our homeless people. And so the safe spaces is the route that we went.
Paint City last year, it was like a dream. It was amazing, where the city spoiling us, giving us our spaces to sleep in. We had blankets given up to us from Home Choice. We had toiletries.
But then, in September 2020, reports started filtering out of Paint City via the NGOs who were working with the residents about dodgy dealings, sloppy governance, and severe human rights abuses.
MacDoc were requesting them to put on footage how MacDoc was helping them and doing whatever they could to support them and bettering their lives, etc. And if they did not comply, they would not get food. So this was all in the interest, essentially, of a tender procurement.
At the time, MacDoc was bidding for the tenders for all 3 safe spaces worth around 75 million rand over 3 years. Its competitors were reputable NGOs who had been working with street dwellers for years. But MacDoc outbid them all. It had already won Kulenburg 1 in June 2020 and was officially awarded the tender for Paint City in November 2020. But already in October 2020, MacDoc was under investigation for committing human rights abuses against its residents, particularly women.
They did not have the specialized knowledge and experience on how to deal with street-based communities.
People are complaining that they left outside the gates until 10 o'clock at night. They refused entrance. Some of the elderly folk are told to sleep outside of the building. They're not allowed inside.
I was asked to go into Paint City because there were accusations of ladies being strip searched whilst they were having their menstrual periods, etc.
This only happened with the women, so that already shows you that there's a problem, because why are the men not strip searched but all the women are strip searched when they come back? And then they were also told to sort of squat and cough so that their private parts could be checked to make sure that they're not hiding something in their private parts.
And the day we walked in there was a cage where people that were coming back intoxicated or slightly under the weather were given the alternative, either leave the shelter or you go into the cage. Now the cage you go into, come rain or come shine, no food, and that's your punishment for coming back intoxicated.
The place where the cage was positioned was right at the edge of a public parking lot, which meant that the members of the public would be walking past and driving past, and you would be in full view in this cage. It was like really inhumane. One of the staff
that used to be a resident, also used to sleep on the streets with us outside here, actually asked me to have sex with him for money.
Not only the staff members are trying to pay them to have sex with the staff members, but that the staff members have also been trying to coerce them into having sex with other people in exchange for money. And they are forced to have sex with people that they don't want to have sex with. It boils down to rape.
Social workers formerly employed by Matdock have also spoken out on condition of anonymity.
What shocked me most was when a client says that she has been incarcerated before, but she has never been searched to that level in a prison setting. And also the initial disclosure was not to the social workers. Because I think that at the time they felt that, they couldn't approach us at all.
This service provider has no experience of working in the vulnerable groups with homeless. They just registered in 2019. It's a family-run business, a lot of nepotism, and we're not getting anywhere by accessing any of the management.
If you look at the client, the street-based people, they are going to accept anything and everything because they are in survival mode. They are in a mode where I just need to get my next best thing. They can't think long-term.
Many street dwellers enter safe spaces in active addiction, and careful protocols must be put in place to wean them off drugs like heroin through methadone.
What was happening with the methadone was it was being left in the passageways and, for any resident to access.
There was no supervisor. There was nobody that could guide us and tell us exactly what we needed to do.
The NGOs who had been working with the residents and had blown the whistle were locked out of Paint City. The Human Rights Commission was prohibited from inspecting the safe space, and the media were also denied access. In October 2020, an NGO dealing with gender-based violence and substance abuse wrote directly to Councillor Badruddin alleging 7 severe violations and remedies.
The first proposed way forward was the immediate suspension of the service provider. We then asked for an external investigation, not an internal forensic investigation, because we understood that previously that has turned up to absolve everybody from anything.
2 separate investigations have taken place, and immediately upon receipt of that, we handed it over to the forensic services immediately.
When we asked why it was internal, he said it's because of the nature of the allegations, and they didn't want to waste any time procuring an external investigation company, which I'm sorry, doesn't add up for me.
That investigation process has since concluded in terms of then needing to make sure that from a contractual perspective, we manage our contract more effectively.
But well over a year later, although the findings of the investigation have apparently been completed, the report and its findings have never been made publicly available. Special assignment was advised by the city to apply for the report through the Promotion of Access to Information Act. Apart from the cage and the strip searches, Matdock has denied the allegations.
I appeal to those individuals in the safe spaces to lodge formal complaints.
For him to expect clients to come up and lodge a complaint is not even naive. I think it's stupid. Simply because if I am in a place and I at least have a meal and I literally have shelter for the night, I'm not going to lodge a complaint whether I'm being violated or not, because my basic needs in this situation is being met.
More than a year after the shocking allegations surfaced at Paint City's safe space, for Matdock, it is business as usual.
What we're trying to do at the moment is just trying to find place for those at the moment that are currently living there. We have managed to help some of our people move to social development schemes out in Belleville South.
Although human rights monitors had been denied access to Paint City after the allegations surfaced in September 2020, in October 2021, I was permitted to visit, but I was not allowed to engage with the residents.
People are always talking about negatives. Now, there's no negatives that really has come out. We've had 2 issues, but that's been sorted, that's been dealt with. Here's the issue, they keep on mentioning this, and they had a campaign in last year, and now again, that we are unqualified. Everybody's making allegations. Nobody's come to sit down and ask me, is this true? They just run to the media, and the media puts it out there.
They did launch a forensic investigation last year, but the report has not been made available to us. I did speak with Councillor Badruddin several times. I spoke to Mayor Dan Plato, spoke to Shana Fernandez.
Shana Fernandez is the Minister for the Western Cape Department of Social Development, but the department appears to have dissociated itself completely from the situation, saying it is the city's issue. This is despite the fact that the department, like the National Department of Social Development, is the custodian of the homeless community.
We were told that the content of our letter, with 7 allegations and 7 proposed solutions, was discussed with the minister, and that the Provincial Department of Social Development does not have the authority to intervene in the matter.
The province's Department of Social Development did not respond to Special Assignment's requests for an interview.
We contacted the Hawks, and had a meeting with the Hawks, and they said this is much higher than the Hawks, because of the amount of money involved.
So who is MacDoc, and how did it secure 2 lucrative contracts for Paint City and Kulenburg 1 with 50 million rand? MacDoc actually stands for the mattress doctor. So why did it make the transition from bedding to safety nets for the city's homeless? What made you want to enter into this space in the first place? I mean, what is your background?
I've been working with social development since 2012.
Okay.
2012, yes. I've been doing the home-based care. I've been doing the placement of the person with disability. Since then, been busy with it.
So we did some research and we found that prior to this, MacDoc had been a service provider and had gotten tenders from the city as they used to do electrical payment, people that were behind in electrical payments, they used to do the collections. Then suddenly, about 2 years ago, they became the city's preferred events management supplier. And then another 2 years later, they become the social work service providers.
In fact, over the years, MacDoc Outsourcing has repeatedly tried to secure pieces of the tender pie, not only in Cape Town, but nationally as well. In 2017, for example, it submitted a tender to the National Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries to manage a fish factory.
They have absolutely no qualifications. What we did, because we wanted to find out how did they manage to get these contracts. After all, organizations like MES, U-Turn, Youth Solutions, Ubuntu, all applied, and they didn't get it. Yet this, an unknown organization, got it.
And are the clients given their meals here every day, 3 meals a day kind of thing? The MacDoc family is intimately involved in the daily running of Paint City, even preparing all the meals.
We had a food organization called Shiloh that used to come and drop food for us every day. Breakfast in the morning, lunch in the afternoon, and supper in the evening. The food always had vitamins, vegetables, and we used to get a fruit with our lunch every day and stuff. But after I noticed that Shiloh is not coming anymore. The management of Maddock actually opened their own kitchen, so which we are not getting those vitamin foods anymore.
We were informed that in the budget that the service provider received, there was allocation for toiletries, but we never had. There was never sufficient. If we want to say that we want to rehabilitate people back into society, or we need to make sure that their basic needs are met. And often they weren't soap, often they weren't toothpaste, often they weren't toothbrushes. Those kinds of things for clients to now make themselves presentable and restore their dignity as a human being.
Nothing is mentioned of the positive things that have been done. My staff I have is qualified staff. They can do the work that is supposed to be done. We have here 54 people that have been reintegrated, all reunified from here.
In a previous episode, we interviewed Chaz Rogers, a homeless musician who was staying at Kulenburg 1. This was a safe space awarded to Maddock in 2018 for over 2 million rand, and for which it won the tender again in 2020 for 25 million rand over a 3-year period.
Yeah, this is what you call social development. Living conditions are actually kind of inhumane in a way. There's been a lot of promises of things being done which have not been done. Those who are in control of the place are not exercising their true passion for the job that they are doing. There is no empathy.
Maddock also submitted a tender for Kulenburg 2, the city's third safe space. But in January 2021, it was scooped by Take Note, an obscure corporation supposedly specializing in PR and event management, among other diverse activities. A visit to the Take Note website reveals that it is still under construction. But a trawl through the tender history of Cape Town shows that it too has repeatedly tried to get a slice of the city's lucrative tender pie.
Prior to that, electrical collecting for the city, and 2 years ago also events management, and now suddenly this. So the connection was, okay, there's obviously a connection here because they were doing exactly the same thing. That's how they moved into this the whole picture together.
Are you associated with them at all?
Sorry?
Are you associated with them at all?
No.
The city declined our request for the qualifications of both Maddock and Take Note, as well as the contents of their tender applications, citing the Protection of Personal Information Act.
Surely if they found anything that was untoward, they would have obviously reprimanded us. But on the date, if all the things and allegations that have been made is unfounded.
There is nothing legislating or governing the provision of services to these vulnerable key population groups. They're wiping their hands.
But there is so much more to this saga, and we will continue to shed more light on the treatment of street-based communities who continue to accuse the mother city of treating its most vulnerable offspring as orphans